Thank you all for being here today. I do have a prepared statement, and then I would be happy to take questions. In early 2019, Western Iowa Tech Community College embarked on a new journey to provide educational opportunities as well as provide real-world training and internships for cultural exchange students. The U.S. Department of State granted the college the ability to have J-1 visas for students to study and get both theoretical training and real-world training. Western Iowa Tech Community College pursued this program in the hopes of providing students with a credential and work experience that would help them to have a better life upon returning to their home country. The college was very excited to provide an exchange for the benefit not only of our international students, but of other students here at Western Iowa Tech. Western Iowa Tech recruited students and then sent representatives to interview them in Chile and Brazil. 60 students arrived in July and August of 2019. Western Iowa Tech Community College partnered with Siouxland businesses to provide jobs for the students and jointly offer scholarships. In accordance with the approved J-1 visa application, the students worked full-time for a minimum wage. In addition, the businesses and Western Iowa Tech provide scholarships to offset the cost of tuition, housing, and fees. The J-1 visa students are not responsible, have not paid, nor will be asked to pay for the following: airfare from their home country to the United States, transportation and hotel accommodations accrued during their travel, tuition for classes, fees associated with attending college, housing in the dorms on the campus of Western Iowa Tech, textbooks, uniforms, and tools. At no point were students expected to repay anything should they leave the program early. And we did have students who left the program early, and we did not charge those students anything. The students were initially held responsible for the cost of their health insurance. However, Western Iowa Tech Community College has covered all of the costs associated with health care thus far. In return for these accommodations, students agreed to the following: work at least 32 hours a week at their sponsoring employer, attend classes full-time, attend English courses if English skills are determined to be lower than necessary to perform academic and internship duties, attend classes in their program and maintain a minimum grade point average of 2.0, attend internship and receive positive reviews from their internship supervisor, live in Western Iowa Tech student housing, return to their home country after graduating or upon the request of the college at the student's expense, communicate about their whereabouts to the international department, not to use tobacco, drugs, alcohol, weapons, or firearms on campus, which are not allowed, provide proof of health insurance, provide proof of their social security number. Should the students not meet these requirements, they would be asked to return to their home country at their own expense. Western Iowa Tech Community College undertook the effort to house and educate 60 international students after careful planning and consideration. We felt a tremendous responsibility to make these students feel like they were at home. We were incredibly proud of the welcoming response from our employees, many of which are in the room today, and thank you all for being here. Here at the college, staff members have opened their homes to many of these students. We have arranged for outings at entertainment venues, movies, trips. A group of 30 students were taken to a special outing on Christmas Day. Staff held a clothing drive for winter clothes for our students. it's safe to say that many friendships have been formed between these students and our employees. Many employees view these students as family. In November of 2019, the J1 program was reviewed by the U.S. Department of State and provided the college with mid-course corrections and modifications. The college is working hard to find partnering employers to provide the required training component of this program. Internships have been secured for 43 students, while 7 students are still remaining, and we're working hard at finding internships for those 7 students. Western Iowa Tech continues to be in communication with the U.S. Department of State to ensure continued compliance with federal regulations. We are aggressively pursuing these internships as we want these students to be successful. From the very beginning, we've been working to help these students and make this a positive experience for them. We've been in regular communication with our students, met with them frequently, but there was evidently a failure to clarify expectations. While some students were very successful and even promoted at their workplace, we were aware that some aspects of the program were not what the students had hoped for. In these instances, we have worked with them to find other positions. Where that was not possible, Western Iowa Tech Community College offered to pay for the students' airfare to their home country if they decided not to continue to pursue the program. Several Western Iowa Tech students accepted the offer and returned home at no cost to them. Under no circumstances were students threatened with deportation. As a matter of fact, Western Iowa Tech does not have the ability to deport students. According to the signed agreement, students would have to pay their way home if they did not fulfill the requirements of this program. However, with the unforeseen changes in the program, we decided not to hold the students responsible to that agreement, and we paid their way home. An issue raised by our students related to food. It's become clear that there was a breakdown in communication regarding food and meals. Western Iowa Tech has provided some resources, such as gift cards and access to the college's food pantry. While there's no contractual obligation on Western Iowa Tech's part to do so, Western Iowa Tech is in the process of ensuring that we secure food for our students during the remainder of the program. We are shocked and saddened to learn of our students' experiences and heard about many of these concerns for the first time yesterday. We will work with these students to find solutions. Western Iowa Tech is in the opportunity business, and we continue and will continue to find opportunities for these students. We fully realize this process wasn't perfect and that we met some challenges. Despite everything, we are still 100% committed to our students' success. The college is in the process of taking the following steps to find internships for the 7 remaining students, to strengthen our communication with our J1 students, to ensure that we all understand the requirements and our plans moving forward, and work with our students to find solutions for their meals. And most importantly, to ensure a safe and supportive environment exists for their continued learning. Even though we've experienced some issues, I want to be really clear with this. There have been a lot of successes in this program. Just a couple are that 57 students have received 12 to 15 credits of college credit and are on schedule to graduate. Students have been exposed to numerous cultural experiences, some tremendous friendships, and lifelong friendships have been formed and will continue. At this point, I would be more than happy to take your questions. From anybody but Woody.
Thanks.
Woody, what name?
Well, one of the things that I'm still trying to kind of get my head around with this is the fact that the students didn't seem to communicate with anyone in the administration out here, and this group from the other side of the state that's known mainly for ag issue lobbying involving hog lots and chemicals and farm waters and such. How did we get to where we got yesterday? I'm still surprised that this Iowa CCI group is the one to break this instead of students like coming to your office or Troy's office or whoever's office to make this an issue. So, I mean, everybody out here seemed extremely shocked, and I'm sure you still are by this whole thing coming out the way that it did.
Yeah, I don't know that I have an answer to your question, Woody, but certainly we knew that things weren't perfect with the program, and we knew that the students were struggling. I can tell you that we did not understand the extent of frustration that existed in our students, and are troubled by that. We obviously are here for students to be successful. We obviously are here so that students can learn, they can improve their life, and they can move on and reach the goals that they want to acquire. So, yeah, I think if obviously in the perfect world, I would have loved for this to come out a different way, and that we can sit down and work together. That's what will certainly happen from here on out. But it happened the way it happened, and we needed to respond to it.
Yeah, but as far as you know, no one ever came to your office or Troy's office or anyone?
No one has come to my office. No J1 student has ever come to my office or caught me in the hall and expressed any of these interests in any of these concerns to me personally, no. I can't speak for Troy, but I don't believe that that's the case either.
According to the students, they voiced concerns to Rosanna and Julene Albert, I believe, because they mentioned their names several times yesterday in the
Sure.
interviews. That they, voiced their concerns. One of the main concerns that some of the students had were their work schedules, that they were working 12-hour shifts, and some were working up to 50, 54 hours. They did provide us pay stubs, which we saw. What is your take on that? Were you aware that these students were working more than full-time jobs and that was interfering with their class schedule?
Sure, thanks for the question. We, as I mentioned, obviously we're aware of different things that happened at different times. We do know that students worked more than the 40 hours. It's my understanding that when they did that at their own desire and wanted the overtime for that. They were not scheduled for 50 hours or more. There was the opportunity for students to receive overtime, and several students took that. Many students did not take that overtime and did not work those hours.
But the jobs paid minimum wage, but some of the jobs they described having were jobs that probably paid more than that. What happened with the rest of the money?
Thanks, Sheila. So the question really is about how do we finance this program? And the J1 visa program is a very interesting program. It's a work and study program for students to have a cultural exchange. So there's a cultural exchange, and then there's a study, and then there's work. Internships is the program that we are under, and so the students have an internship. There is no requirement. As a matter of fact, many schools do not pay their students in their internship. But we worked very hard with our employing partners to make sure that we could find a way that the students were paid. Now, it becomes difficult when you try to explain it in the situation that we're doing right now, but basically the intent was to make sure that the students had money for things like food and other things, to provide all the other expenses for them from Western Iowa Tech, and to give them this experience. So no, it's not the same as you and I going into an employer and asking for a job and getting the pay that we get.
What kind of internships are they going to do now? What types?
Well, it depends on the program that they're in. So we initially started this program with students in culinary arts and in robotics. We chose those two programs because, quite honestly, food processing is the predominant industry in our area. And so then when the students came in, we had commitments from some employers. Those commitments didn't end up panning out. And so we know that, we knew early on that these were not the optimal jobs that we wanted our students to be in. At the same time, these students came to us as a brand new student in these programs and had minimum skills. And so it's not like we could place them in high-level jobs. They needed to start in jobs that had a lower skill level and that they could improve their skill level. As a matter of fact, at two of our organizations, the students were promoted because either they acquired the skills from us or the employers noted that they had some skills that they needed, and they were promoted into higher paying and higher level work. Help me with the beginning of your question, because I took a little bit of a roundabout, but I want to make sure I answer it.
Just trying to figure out like what kind of internships now, because
Sure.
some of them claim that
The
what
internships
they
now.
had as an internship really wasn't something that they desired to do.
Thanks for getting me back on track.
Yeah.
We've opened that up to more than culinary arts and robotics, and so students are in a wide variety of programs. Still, the majority of our students are in culinary arts and robotics. In the culinary arts, a majority of those are working more for what we would recognize as restaurant type. Some are at restaurants, some are in delis, but much more into what we would see as culinary arts type work. Robotics are the ones that we're struggling with a little bit more. The 7 students that we have defined are in robotics. Some students have changed to business and other programs where we're able to get appropriate work for them. And so we continue to look and find work for those students.
Is it a 1 or 2 year program now?
It's a 1-year program.
1 year, okay.
Yes.
Hi, it's my understanding that when WIT put recruitment in the hands of J&L staffing, the State Department later came in and said, you're not supposed to do that. Do you feel that there was a misunderstanding on WIT's part in how the J-1 visa program is supposed to work?
Sure, thanks for your question. I just do want to clarify, recruitment was never in the hands of J&L staffing. So college recruited the students, and then we went down and interviewed those
I mean
students.
job recruitment, to clarify,
Perfect.
yeah.
So the job placement was in J&L. We wrote our original application to the U.S. Department of State and included that, and that application was approved. We found out later that the State Department does not like you working with staffing agencies, and at that point we needed to transition away from that.
Was the State Department review a routine one, or were they contacted by students to come and look at your program?
You know, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if you've worked with the U.S. Department of State, but the thing I can say is we were a brand new program, and we welcomed them to come in. You know, it's the J1 program, you know, one thing I can say is we went into this with high aspirations for our students and found out there's a lot of bureaucracy in this program. And I'll tell you what, I hope none of you have been here for anything like this before. I hope none of you will ever be here for anything like this before, because we work very hard to make sure that we do the right thing. And so we welcome the State Department coming in and providing that guidance for us. We have continued to stay in contact with the State Department. Not required to do that, but we want to make sure that we have the highest value program that we can absolutely have.
I'd like to touch on the meals. In the acceptance letter and invitation letter sent to students dated June 3rd, 2019, it clearly states meals will be provided by the college. Can you explain when this changed, and were the students notified if a change was made to those original offer letters?
Sure, thank you for the question. You know, meals is the most troubling part for me, and I think there was a tremendous amount of miscommunication that happened on that. You know, the thing that I can say and reiterate is this was a brand new program, and we were working everything through. I can tell you that the handbook that we brought to the students in Chile and Brazil clearly stated that meals were the student's responsibility. I'm not sure how we put out the letter that, first time I saw that letter was yesterday. I'm not sure how we put it out. And obviously that created miscommunication and so that in part is why we're going to work very closely to ensure that we provide meals for our students moving forward.
Even in the J1 student agreement that you provided and the students also provided to us, it never states that they will be required to provide their own meals. It does talk about the health insurance, but the meals they're
Correct.
claiming is in the original offer letters with the students' names and signed by your administration. A lot of the concerns from the students was that they just had winter break. A lot of them were starving, and they were told by WIT administrators to go to local churches. Can you address that?
I can, you know, again, I'll continue to echo that this is the most troubling thing for me on that. I'd be interested in the letter that you referenced that said that the students signed it that say, the offer letter that says that, yeah, that was the June letter, I believe, that you had mentioned.
So highlighted in yellow, invitation letter, and also they're not responsible for the cost. And in this highlighted,
Hold on a second. Hold on, then
where it says spring 2020 and the balance, housing and meal plan, and what the students are being charged. And this is also another question that the students have is, they were told that they're responsible for these current fees. Can you also address that?
Yeah, there's a, I don't see a name on this.
That is, I can get you the name of which student that belongs to. But these are the two letters that they received where it references.
Not that so we don't, we aren't charging the students. We've never charged the students. I can assure you we've never taken a payment from students. You know, I'm not an expert in our systems to know that, I at least know enough that we have to put charges on our systems for everything, and then the scholarship comes in and pays for those charges. So
all of the balances that they're showing for the spring 2020, they're saying that they were told this is what you're going to owe for this semester. Are you saying that's not correct and they should just?
that is not correct.
That it's not.
Students are not and have not been charged for anything in this program. So my only assumption on that is that we have to put charges on our system, and then we put the scholarship on the system to offset those charges.
How were the wages paid? Was $15 an hour paid through the packing plants to J&L and then split $7.25 for the students, $7.75 for the college?
Well, the dollar amounts were all different, depending upon the jobs that the students worked. And the students did receive the minimum wage, and then the rest is applied toward the scholarship.
Because the staffing agency implied that they were paying students more than they typically, that one of the plants was paying students more than they typically pay them because they wanted to help them out.
Now, we did not get involved in that. The companies or J&L pay directly to the student, and then they give us money for the scholarship.
Can you explain who Soledad Rojas is and what her relationship is with WIT?
I'm sorry, who?
Soledad Rojas.
I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay, so according to a July 10, 2019 email, she sent these students an explanation of changes that were being made to the DS 2019, which is the Department of Education paperwork that the school is filling out, where it was stated that there were certain mistakes that were made and they needed to The school needed to drop J&L as a partner or sponsor. Some of the students mentioned that J&L staff went to recruit in their countries. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a confusion when it comes to recruitment. So the students were recruited before anyone went to their country. And Western Iowa Tech staff and a J&L staff member went to both Chile and Brazil to interview students. So the students were recruited and we needed to meet with them to determine whether they would qualify for the program. J&L was there to ensure that they qualified, that they had the work experience needed for the program, or the work requirements. Western Iowa Tech, we were there obviously to assess that they had their English skills and that they had other basic skills to be able to enter our program.
What do you mean that they had the work experience for the program?
So it's hard for me to speculate on, I was not in the interviews that they had done. I know that, so I have a hard time speculating, but I know that she interviewed the students and there were several students that did not, were not accepted into the program due to that interview.
Why was the decision even made to partner with these staffing agencies through this program?
That's a darn good question. So when we started this endeavor, it took us, we applied at the U.S. Department of State and the application was there for 13 months. So working through that process took a long time. We, I guess, reviewed every document that we could find in determining how we wanted to set up the program. And we set up the program in what we thought was the best way that we could do that. When it comes to the programs that the students were taking, being culinary arts and robotics, we didn't have one company here in Siouxland that would be able to have all of the jobs for those students. So we felt like going through a staffing agency would allow us the flexibility to place students in a lot more work environments and a lot more, and a wider variety of jobs. So that's why we initially decided to go with J&L staffing.
So you knew the tasks that they would be performing at these different businesses?
So I did. So until we got a commitment from the students, we didn't have commitments from employers. We were working with J&L, and again, I have to be careful because I don't know that I can necessarily speak for J&L, but my understanding was that the businesses on J&L side were somewhat hesitant to commit until they knew a time frame when the students were coming. We got approved for the visa in May, and the students started arriving in July and August, so that was a fairly tight timeline. Certainly in retrospect, we would have given ourselves a little more time.
During that visa process, why were they given a list of responses that they had to use during the interview process?
So I'm not familiar with that. If that was happened, I do know that it's a different world for these students when you go in and interview at our embassy, and we wanted to make sure that the students were familiar with the program that they were applying for. They all had a meeting with the embassy, and my understanding is we provided information to them that they needed to be able to correctly speak about the program that they were applying for.
What in future years, assuming you have support from local employers, do you continue this with new groups of students in the future, applying lessons learned through this, or what's the plan going forward?
Thanks. Yeah, we're reassessing everything right now. I can tell you we've recruited no students for next year. And my gut is we will not recruit students for next year. we will have to determine whether we continue this program, but we are committed to continuing the students that are here now. But I don't foresee us anytime in the future recruiting new students.
You kind of said that like the complaints weren't made to you directly, so I guess was the complaint made to the State Department, or did they review the program independently and figure this out?
I don't know what was I don't know what was reported to the State Department. So students obviously had concerns all along. And I don't know if you guys work with students, but students are certainly willing to share with you what they like and what they don't like on anything all along. And the students shared with us where they didn't like things, and we really tried to work very closely with them on that. Whether the State Department was notified or not, I do not know. The State Department has not shared that with us. I do know that they come in and audit new programs to ensure that the programs are doing have the guidance that they need to be successful.
You said you're reassessing the program in the future. What's being done for these students now that are bringing up these complaints?
Sure. Well, I can tell you from what I mentioned at the end of my talk, number one, we're committed to the students. We're committed for them to stay here. We're committed for them to be successful. We're going to committed to finding the internships for the 7 remaining students. We're committed to strengthening our communication with the students to ensure that we all understand where we're at and where we want to go. We're committed to working with our students to find solutions for their meals. And we're committed to ensure a safe and supportive environment so that learning can occur.
How are you going to work with them for the meals?
So really this is for me, the concern that struck me the most. I wasn't aware of this, and so we don't have 100% of the plan right now, but I certainly know that we have food service here, and we have lots of ways to be able to help our students with the food. But at this point, we have not sat down with the students. I didn't feel it was appropriate until we've gotten past this, and then we'll sit down with our students and ask them what their needs are and find out how we can meet those needs.
How did you notify the students that the program was changing with the minor details from a 2-year degree to a 1-year, changing of names, that sort of thing, program?
Sure. Our staff met with students often, and I know of 2 occasions where staff met with students and we explained the changes in the program. And in both of those occasions, we offered for those students who were not happy with the changes, if they wanted to return, that they could return, and that we would pay for those return. We had 5 students take us up on that, and we paid for the airfare for them to return to their home country.
Were the changes made before they arrived in the United States or after?
Most of the changes occurred in November, which would have been after they returned, or after they arrived.
Okay. In a letter from one of the students that they provided for us, they were asked to destroy a package that they had received from a lawyer that included a list of saying that the system would be not a 2-year but a 1-year, the changes of the names of the programs, and this also included the destroying of the acceptance letter from the vice president. Do you have any explanation for that?
This is the first I've heard of that. I don't know anything about that.
So Taylor is referring, again, that's why I asked who Soledad Rojas is, because she forwarded an email attachment signed by Rosanna Salgado Burright, where it explains the changes that are happening. It tells them that you need to turn in everything to Carlos and Soledad that you previously received, meaning all of the documents that were being changed. But looking at all of the paperwork that they signed, I mean, there were signatures for March, April, May leading up to. We just don't know. And this
What's the
email
date
was
of that?
forwarded in July 10th. And this is the second time that this email, because it even says in Spanish that they're resending this email, reminding you, to ask any questions to Lily and Rosanna. But what the main question that we have from that is, It
So the
seems
date on that
like
again, can you help me?
Soledad Rojas.
The date.
The
I'm sorry.
date, July 10th, 2019 is the email. So is she a recruiter or who does she work for? Because she's obviously communicating with the students on behalf of the school.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know who she is. I will have to find that out, and I can find that information out and get that to you. July 10th, I believe, is before any students arrived. I do know that, again, brand new to the program, and the bureaucracy of this program is, I should say the paperwork of this program is fairly high, that we made several mistakes in filling out the paperwork. Again, I'm not 100% familiar with this case, but my guess is if we had documents out there that were wrong, if the students brought them to the embassy, that in and of itself would be something that would disclude them from being in the program. So again, I don't like assuming, but I know that we struggled to get all of the paperwork correct, not having gone through this before. And I know there were several times that we had to issue new students. I guess the only thing I can say is if asked to destroy them was so you wouldn't bring the wrong form to the embassy and be disqualified.
So I want to ask about recruiting again. So did J&L ever have contact directly with the students in the recruiting process? Like what was their involvement?
Sure. To my knowledge, J&L never had any contact with the students until we arrived in Chile and Brazil, and they met individually with the students to determine whether they could perform the necessary functions for the work that was being done. So the recruitment was done prior to that. So my knowledge, J&L was not in contact with any students in the recruitment stage. So that makes no sense to me.
Will you be releasing just copies of these agreements that the students signed publicly?
We can release any documents. Obviously, I'm not sure exactly what documents that the students are referring to, but we certainly will work with that. We're a public institution and we will be open.
As well as the proposal the college submitted to the State Department and Department of Education?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Has WIT gotten any questions so far from other countries that it works with for different programs regarding this particular instance here? And are you worried that this whole thing that's unfolded here will affect WIT's relationships with other countries?
Well, I'm worried that this whole thing that's going on here will affect a lot of things. Absolutely. That it'll affect the current employers that we have, the current partners that we have. That it will affect certainly any of the other international students that we have here, absolutely.
Jerry, for the sake of time, we're going to take maybe about one or two more questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have you been contacted by the State Attorney General's office at all
No.
in regards to this?
No.
When this all started, did the J1 program, did it struggle to even get anyone interested? Is that kind of why we turned to recruiters?
No, as a matter of fact, we were surprised at the interest that the program had when we initially advertised it. Again, it started in, we got the ability to offer the visa in May, and by July we had a full complement of students who were interested. Several of the students I see are here today, and I know that you've heard from some students who are not happy with the program, and because of that, obviously, we're concerned, but we also know that there are many students who are very happy with the education that they've got, the internships that they've got, and the relationships that they've formed, and certainly would encourage you to speak to those students as well.
The students did mention that they are receiving a great education. They have no complaints about their classes. Their only complaints are that they feel that they were misled and they've been abandoned, and that the school isn't stepping up to abide by what they thought they were going to be receiving. Because they did say, you know, we have received, you know, great, with no complaints about the classes or anything.
Feel free to answer, but this is going to be the final question. Thank you.
Thanks. You know what, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's very important to us. We're first and foremost in the education business. And that's what we do, and that's what we do really well. And we took on a new adventure because we believed we could do something for people and make a difference. And we certainly have made mistakes along the way in doing that. And I can tell you, it troubles me that the students feel like that they've been abandoned. And I guess of all this, I'm glad to now know where we stand, and to let the Siouxland community know, to let our students know that we stand behind these students, and that we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that their experience from here on out is a positive experience and they get what they're looking for. So, thank you all very much for being here.